What up, book lovers? It is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today with the 23 books I want to read in 2023. I cannot believe that we are already here and we're talking about 2023 reading. I mean, to be completely honest, I'm filming this in November 2022 because I have to pre-film a bunch of things before my mother-in-law gets here and lives in this room. I'm utilizing the space and time while I have it, but I know for a fact that I want to get to these books in 2023 and I am very much looking forward to them. Majority of the books I'm going to be mentioning today I already have on my physical TBR. However, there are still a few that I don't have on my physical TBR that I would like to mention. So I will start off the video by talking about those 5. However, the other 18 books I have on my physical TBR already. Some of these are like starts to a series or a continuation to a series. I mean, if this TBR consisted of like full series, like if I had like 5-book series there and a 7-book series there, then like it'd just be a pretty short video. There's a range of books I want to try out, whether it be standalones or a start to a series or a continuation to a series. So pretty much that is what my list consists of. I'm not going through full series. If you want to see a full series TBR, I am planning to do one. I don't know whether one is up by the time that I am filming this or not, but one thing's for sure, a series TBR for 2023 is coming, so don't you worry. So I guess without further ado, let's get straight into these books that I do want to read this year. So for the ones that I currently don't have, I will read off of my phone. The first one I would like to mention is The Coldest Girl in Cold Town by Holly Black. I'm still waiting for my Fairy Loot edition as I'm filming this video. It has probably arrived to me by the time the new year starts anyway. I did also have a physical copy of this book. I had just let go of it because one, it was a 50-cent secondhand library edition. It was like almost like really destroyed. But then secondly, I ended up getting a Fairy Loot edition anyway. So I let that one go for this one to come in. And I've wanted to read this book for quite some time. I remember when I first joined BookTube, Kat at Catty-tastic recommended this book on her channel. It was one of her favorite Holly Black books at the time that she kept on recommending it. And so because she kept on recommending this book, I wanted to read it. I still really want to read it. I've always kind of wanted to, and then when Fairy Loot decided they were going to release their beautiful hardback of it, I just knew I needed it in my life. I'm very much looking forward to reading this one. I do want to give this one a chance because Book of Night was not my favorite, and I want to be reminded of how much I actually enjoy Holly Black's writing, because Book of Night was a book that I technically endured rather than enjoyed. And the next book I put on the 23 books that I want to read in 2023 is When Gracie Met the Grump by Mariana Zapata. So ever since I heard the premise of this book, I wanted to read it. However, it is actually getting re-released by a publisher mid-December of 2022. That has definitely given me incentive to purchase the paperback, because originally the paperback was gonna cost like over $55. I kept on seeing it on Amazon. I was just like, this is ridiculous for a paperback. But when it got picked up by a publisher, the recommended retail price changed for the better. I cannot wait to read this one. It's a superhero romance story, and honestly, we need more of them, like in my personal opinion. I like fantasy romance, I like paranormal romance, but where is my superhero romance at? And the next book I put on this list is actually a start to a series, and that is City of Thorns by C.N. Crawford. C.N. Crawford, I just found out, are also a husband and wife duo writing fantasy books together. So as I'm filming this video right now, I still haven't yet received my Fae Crate set of the Demon Queen trials. That is the trilogy that this book is set in, and I've wanted to read this series for quite some time, but when I heard Fae Crate were releasing books in this series in special edition hardbacks, and when I saw the artwork, I just knew I had to grab them. I've wanted to read this series ever since people were hyping it up on KU and on Book Talk. I just know that this is a fantasy romance I'm going to enjoy, but we will see. Really excited for this one. As I'm filming this video, I have not yet read C.N. Crawford, but I 100% intend to. There's so many books I have on my TBR from them. And the final 2 books that I have on this list that I don't have physical copies of yet that I would love to get to are both by the same author. In fact, you're going to see 3 books by the same author because I want to read their front list and their back list this year. The author I'm referring to is Laura Thalassa, and the books I'm referring to are The Unearthly and Bewitched. So these ones I don't have yet because with Unearthly, right, I really want to read this book. I really want to read the series, and a big reason why I do is because it takes place in the world of the Bargainer trilogy, but I believe it was written beforehand. I have read the Goodreads reviews of The Unearthly, and they are not as as pleasant as The Bargainer. Like, a lot of people are like, this isn't The Bargainer, or this isn't The Queen of All That Dies, or this isn't the Four Horsemen series. I understand that. However, authors do have humble beginnings. They do have series that aren't as good or as developed as their most recent works. I have a feeling that the Unearthly series, it's a 5-book series, is probably not going to be at the level of the Bargainer trilogy or the Four Horsemen series. However, I still want to read content from this world because I love the Bargainer trilogy, I love the Bargainer world, and I want to explore it more. However, with this book slash series, I'm not planning to buy the physical copies until there is a cover change. I really don't like these covers. They just, they look very aged, okay? Like, they did not age like fine wine. They did quite the opposite. They aged like milk. So I plan to actually listen to this series on audiobook. If the covers change to the audio covers, I understand that the audio covers also look like stock image photos and whatnot, but I prefer the audio covers. Like, if the art on the audiobook files get printed onto the paperbacks, I will consider buying this series in paperback. But for now, I am going to be sticking with the audiobooks here. I technically own all the audiobooks for this series now. I just went on a binge buy. So bad for my wallet, but that's what I will do for one of my favorite authors of all time. And then Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. This book also takes place in the same world as the Bargainer trilogy and as the Unearthly series. So I want to read the Unearthly series in the lead up to the Bewitched series. Laura essentially established this world and she did such an amazing job with it in the Bargainer series, but there's so much more I want to explore. Bewitched is definitely probably one of my most anticipated releases of 2023. It's also been picked up by a publisher. It's going to be published by Bloom. It comes out in April of next year, at least in my country. I think in Laura Thalassa's initial announcement about this book, she did say that it was going to come out somewhere between December/January or November/December. I don't know if that's applicable to my country because the last time I checked for the Australian release date, it was April. But one thing's for sure, I want to read that book so badly this year. And moving on to my physical books, but also continuing on with talking about Laura Thalassa, I also want to read the Fallen World trilogy by her. I've wanted to read this one for quite some time, and this is a standalone trilogy. And when I say standalone trilogy, I mean it does not take place in the world of the Bargainer or any other series by Laura Thalassa. That's what I know so far. I believe that this is just its own thing. I have wanted to read this one for quite some time. I just haven't gotten around to it, and I think it's because I just know what kind of book hangover I get after reading a Laura Thalassa series, because I've gone through that twice with the Bargainer trilogy already, and I also went through that with the Four Horsemen series. I don't even think I'm over that book hangover. So that is why I've been putting off Laura Thalassa's backlist books in general. I need to read them. I know I'm gonna do it because she's one of my favorite authors of all time, and I want to see if she is through the other series that she has written that do have less hype. Moving on the lighter side of things, I really want to get to the Brown Sisters trilogy this year, so I'm putting Get a Life Chloe Brown on here. This is a romantic companion trilogy that follows 3 sisters and their love lives. I was considering reading this trilogy in 2022, but I received them in late 2022, so I decided to hold off and to save them for 2023, but also to get my series count up for 2023 because I like a high series count. So I honestly don't know much more about the series beside what I've already mentioned. I'm looking forward to getting to it and letting you guys know how I go with it, and I will see whether it is one of my new favorites or not. Back to series with a darker tone, I've got the Maze of Shadows series by Catherine Ann Kingsley. This is the Unseelie Prince. This is the first book in the quartet. I've wanted to read this series for quite some time. I just haven't gotten to it yet because, I mean, I once again went through a bunch of book hangovers last year in terms of fantasy romance, and I mean, I have to be willing to go through that pain again. I just know that I'm going to experience that with this series because a lot of people do. It's a slow burn romance. There's fae involved. That's all I really know. So I'm excited. And the next book I have on my list is The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Halter. I have always kind of like eyed this book, but I never picked it up. And then, you know what? I finally bit the bullet. I picked it up. It's beautiful, but I really need to read it. I think the 3rd book in this companion trilogy comes out this year, and I am so looking forward to it because I would love myself a good binge read. So I might get to the entire series this year. I don't know whether these are like companion novels, but by the looks of it, both books have like a completely different tone to each other, even though they have a similar cover style. And the next book I've included included on this list today is The Iron Raven, which is the first book in the new Iron Face series by Julie Kagawa. This is actually a spin-off to the original. This trilogy follows Robin Goodfellow. I have been looking forward to this for quite some time. I never went out actively to pick these books up, and I decided, you know what, now's the time, I've got to do it. So I have The Iron Raven and The Iron Sword on my shelf, and I believe that the third book either comes out in 2023 or 2024. Like, who knows? What I do know is that I am so pumped for this trilogy and to binge read it. I hope it is just as good as the original Iron Fae series, or at least it captures the magic of the original series. The next book I included on this list is Sabola Burn, which is the fourth book in the Expanse series. This is the next book in the Expanse series I need to read in order to continue on with the series, and I got around a fifth into this book and I put it down, and the reason why is because I believe that I wanted to read a fantasy romance at the time. I think there was a final book in a series that I desperately needed to get to, but I never continued on with the Expanse series, and I really need to do that, guys, because I actually really do enjoy this series. I'm not pushing myself to read this series, but also, once again, this series is intimidating because these books are chunky, and this is the fourth book. I have books 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 left. But there is more if I want to read the novellas as well, so we will see. I am not going to pressure myself to finish the Expanse series this year. I've pressured myself to do that for many years. This might take years to do, might take the next decade to do, but you know what? I will do it eventually because I still really do like this series. And no, I'm not planning to watch the TV show. I get recommended the TV show a lot in the comments, and I understand why. However, I want my own interpretation of these characters as I'm reading the series, and I feel like when I started watching the TV show, I had lost the spark of that initial reading experience because I could visualize how things were. I think because this takes place in space and TV shows have like a specific budget, when you see it in low quality on a TV show, or at least lower quality than you would expect from the actual real thing, it really does take you out of the story. So I've decided I'm going to put the TV show on hold. I'm not even planning to watch it, probably until I finish the Expanse series altogether. After watching the first few episodes, it kind of like tainted my initial reading experience. When it comes to space operas, I personally just want to experience it all for myself because I won't have to worry about everything looking budgeted in my mind, if that makes sense. I want my mind to go further than a TV show budget. And I know that the books are definitely different from the Expanse TV show at a certain point. That is another reason why I don't want to watch it anytime soon, and I do want to continue on with this series. Personally, I did enjoy James S.A. Corey's writing style as I was going through this series initially, so I know it's not going to be hard to get into, but once again, it's the intimidation of it all. It's how chunky the books are. It's how dense the stories are. But once I get into them, I know I'm going to love them. I've read the first 3 books, I've loved them, and I was in the middle of getting through Sabola Burn. It's just something got in the way. So that is why I know that I have the potential to continue and really enjoy the series. And the next books slash series that I've put on my 2023 TBR are both books slash series by K.F. Breene, completely different series from each other. I have the Demigods of San Francisco here, and then I have the companion series of the Deliciously Dark Fairy Tales. I am so looking forward to these two for different reasons. I just want a very long series to sink my teeth into that have characters that I will be invested in for quite a while. This is a 6-book series, so it will do it for me. Whereas with the Deliciously Dark Fairy Tales series, I love myself fairy tale reimaginings, and I'm a big Beauty and the Beast gal. I think that A Rune of Roses has to do with Beauty and the Beast, but the other ones have to do with other fairy tales. Also, I want to get into more dark romance this year, so I believe that this book series is going to be for me. I cannot wait to get to both these books slash series and let you guys know how I go with them, and also experience K.F. Breene for the very first time. And the next book I've put on the list is The X-Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I actually have 4 books by Rachel Lynn Solomon on my TBR. However, the one I want to get to the most is The X-Talk, because this is essentially how I heard about Rachel Lynn Solomon to begin with. When I first heard the premise of this book, I just knew that I needed it in my life. It has to do with these 2 people who are pretending to be a broken up couple, and they run a podcast together. They just can't stand each other in general, but they pretend to be exes. Cannot wait for this one. I've heard great things about it, and we'll see how I go with it. The next book slash series that I have on this list, I had actually read in a previous life. And when I say a previous life, life. I mean, I'm talking like 6 or 7 years ago. I did not like this series when I first read it, but that was probably because I was looking for more magic and the chosen one in my fantasy novels, not a bunch of political intrigue, not a character who is in the background. I wasn't looking for that. However, the Winter's Trilogy has that, and I could not resist purchasing these books because Alethian art illustrated the covers. This is the first book in the Illumicrate set. It is absolutely stunning, definitely part of my favorite special editions of the year, and I reckon that Illumicrate re-releasing this series in this set made me realize how much I actually don't remember what I don't like about the series. Because I read it in my early 20s, maybe I was 19, what I do know is that it was at least 5 years ago, could have been 6 or 7, and I just did not enjoy my reading experience with it, and I think it was because I expected something different. But the thing is, right now, I don't actually remember what I didn't enjoy about this trilogy. I don't remember anything about it. I just told myself that I hated it because it was boring. Maybe I wasn't paying attention to it. Maybe I skim read through it. I honestly don't remember at this point of my life, but what I do know is that right now, I'm a much more mature reader. I initially told myself that I did not like the Daughter of Smoke and Bone series and that it was mid, and then I revisited it in 2021, and it had become one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I believe that I might just be able to do that again if I revisit this, because who knows? Maybe the Winter's Trilogy was actually a good trilogy, and I did not deserve to rate it like a 2 or a 1 star on Goodreads. I did that, and I, right now, have no idea why. This is going to be a book and series, hopefully, that I revisit in 2023. If I can, I'm putting it on my 2023 TBR because I really do want to try. And funnily enough, the next book that I've also put on this list today is a book that I'm revisiting that I really don't remember anything about, but I want to revisit it because, once again, I'm in a different stage of my life, but also I will understand a little bit more of what's going on because I work in the same industry as the two main characters. Now, my friends, is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This book takes place in the middle of a publishing merger, and these two characters are working for rival companies, and they're competing for the one spot after the merger. And I believe that if one of them gets the spot, the other one will leave because they hate the other person so much. However, there is a romance that sparks between them because this is a romance novel. I don't remember anything about my read of this years ago. I think I skim read it. I just wasn't in the right headspace reading it. Also, I wasn't into romantic contemporary novels back then. This was the time everyone was pressuring everyone to read The Hating Game. That's why I read it, and I didn't enjoy it because I wasn't really interested in the genre at the time. Now I'm interested in romantic contemporary, and I can understand things a lot better now because I work in publishing. It's exciting. I'm very much looking forward to getting to this, and also this Fairy Loot edition is stunning. And now, instead of giving books a second chance, I've got to give this series and this world a second chance by reading Forging Silver into Stars by Bridget Kemmerer. This is the first book in the spin-off trilogy to A Curse So Dark and Lonely, or the Cursebreakers trilogy. It's kind of like a continuation, but not, because it follows different characters. And what I have to say is I kind of wish we continued to follow on with Harper's story. I am very hesitant about this book and this series because I was not satisfied with the ending of the Cursebreakers trilogy, and I was not at all satisfied with the direction of Harper's, and I forgot his name. He was an absolute jerk. The Beast guy. Their relationship. I wasn't happy with the direction of their relationship and the lack of resolution there. So it's really given me a bitter taste in my mouth when I think about the Cursebreakers trilogy. I am also in the majority here when I say Curse So Dark and Lonely should have been a standalone, because the fact that the series just went downhill from there makes me bitter. But Forging Silver into Stars follows different characters, and yes, it's in the same world, so yeah, it would be fun. It's just I'm really bitter about Cursebreakers, so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this. However, I went out of the way to pre-order this hardback. I'm less hyped up about this now, but fingers crossed I will get to it in 2023. And the next book slash series I would like to get to in 2023 is the Wings of Ebony duology by J.L. I actually don't know whether I put this in my 22 books I want to read in 2022 or not. I mean, I could have not. What I do know is that I did not read it in 2022, but I definitely want to read it in 2023. I have both books now. I can do a binge read. I love myself a good binge read. So hopefully I will love this duology. Also, Also, this is a signed first edition, so it would be insulting if I didn't get to it. And another special edition that I have been neglecting on my shelves, that I must not neglect any longer, is A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. This book I purely bought for aesthetic reasons. However, it might just be a romantic historical fiction that wows me. I'm pretty much reading this for a very similar reason to the Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels. These historical romances that have been popping up randomly in the romance section, they excite me, but at the very same time, I'm not really into them. I need to get more into them. Historical romance is not necessarily like my favorite genre. Historical fiction is not necessarily my favorite genre either. However, I'd like to delve into them at some point and kind of read them as a palate cleanser. I'm hoping that A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting would be that palate cleanser for me. We will see. And the next book slash series that I've put on this list today is The Raven and the Dove by Caitlin Davis. This first book is in a 4-book series that only recently got completed, and I have kind of been waiting for the series to be completed before actually picking this series up. So I'm very much looking forward to getting to it eventually and letting you guys know how I go with it. I've been collecting this series since this first book came out, and also I really love the Under the Dust Jacket art. It's just absolutely so pretty. Even though it is on the initial cover, it just looks better without the text. Let's see how I go with this one. I don't know whether this is going to be on the more fairy tale-esque side of things or whether this is going to be darker. I love fantasy romance in general. This just looks right up my alley. And the third last book slash series that I've put on this list today is Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. This, I believe, is a duology. I'm not too sure. I mean, we're probably one step closer to the series being finished in 2023. I didn't read it straight away. It is a shorter fantasy from what I've seen previously. Yeah, it's like 360 pages. I would actually prefer to have like a fuller reading experience by reading the sequel almost straight after it if I possibly can, so I'd probably wait until the sequel comes out. I don't know whether it's a duology or a trilogy. I did put it on my duology TBR, so you know, we will see. I would just prefer to have like a fuller reading experience because with shorter fantasy books, sometimes this length ain't enough for me. The second last book slash series that I would love to get to by the end of 2023 is An Heir Comes to Rise. This is a 5-book series that I believe is going to be completed in 2023. So that is why I've been putting this series off for quite some time. Once again, I am very much into a binge read, and unlike the previous book that I've mentioned, yes, there's still heaps of content to read before I get to the finale, but I just decided that I want to experience it all within 1 year. I am challenging myself to get to An Heir Comes to Rise in 2023, and we will see how this goes. Who knows, maybe I might suffer a really bad book hangover like I have been fearing all of 2022. And finally, the last book slash series that I would like to complete slash continue in 2023 is the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy, and the book that I specifically want to put on this TBR is Glint. This is the second book in the series. I don't plan to revisit the first book. The first book was torturesome enough as it was. It's pretty much a prequel to the series. It doesn't really have a plot. I pretty much know what I know already. I can't unsee the first book, unfortunately. However, the first book is essentially what sets up the rest of the series because you kind of know Oren's backstory. It's definitely more of a prequel. I believe that it gets more plot driven from Glint onwards, and I have wanted to read this series. However, once again, I have been waiting for book 5 to come out, and I personally don't want to read all these books until the entire series is out because I just know once again that I'm going to receive a bad book hangover, and I don't want to have to experience that again by waiting for another book. I mean, you guys already know me with the Blood and Ash series. I reread those books every single year to prepare for the next book in the series. I would do the same for The Plated Prisoner if I was addicted, but I don't know if I can stomach that because, I mean, I already do it with one series. I don't know if I can do it with another and another and another. If there's possibly anything you get out of this video, I like to avoid pain as much as possible, especially the pain of the bad book hangover. I essentially wait for series to be completed a lot of the time before I dive into them, and I don't do that all the time. It has been hard enough with Blood and Ash and with the Crave series, but I've had to deal. With this series, I have indeed waited until Gold comes out, and if there's going to be a 6th book that comes out and is announced after Gold, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm just going to be like, are you serious? I waited all of this time just for that to be dumped on me. Great. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the book stack emoji because we talked about a lot of books today that I put on my TBR. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Joined the amazing community of book lovers. And also I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it into double. Started out with half and I flipped it into double.